by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Millions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake.
In case you missed it, podcast. We got Greg today. It's Christmas Day. Christmas Day. Merry Kwanzonika Festivus. So just
Kwanzonika.
Get everybody, Merry Kwanzonika Festivus. So get everybody in there, and if I missed any of the horror days, holidays that you're celebrating around this time of year, then go cry somewhere, I guess. Go cry somewhere.
Go cry a river.
Truthfully, there's people out there that are enjoying time with their families and everything, and that's great. I have gotten to a point where I could honestly give or take it. It's just gotten to the point where you just see people acting a certain way at this time of the year that they wouldn't necessarily. It's almost as if this time forces people to do things. I say it's hard for some people. It might not be as hard for others. You see the driving. I've been doing a lot of driving, a lot of rush hour driving over the last 4 months or so, and I'm seeing just incredible insanity on the roads. Incredible, a small segment of the population that that speeds and does such reckless things. I can't even fathom that. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. And then of course you mix that in with the horror days. And the reason I call it the horror days is because people turn it into a nightmare. They really do. They really have turned it into a nightmare. And the only thing that Jeff Bezos and a lot of these, people that we think that, started these companies by accident and became big, think again, this is all planned. They have given people, the option of being able to buy most of their holiday things for people, and then they don't go out on the road, so we don't have to see these people on the roads. And so that's one of the only good things, and of course I kind of participate in the whole Amazon thing, so I'm part of the problem. I'm not a huge part of the problem, but I'm a part of the problem because I've been kind of seduced into it. We're seduced by the Luciferian design. And, there's no excuse. I live in shame sometimes, but, I try to do other things to lift myself out of that shame and talk about things like we're going to talk about today with my good friend, Greg here. You just see craziness. Like last night I'm driving and I'm on the one side of the intersection and I'm like the only car. And they both cross the intersection, and I go down there, and there's this white van, and it's driving very slow. And then there's this young kid who's tailgating, as you would imagine, just like because for whatever reason I'm young and fuck the rest of the world. I'm crazy fucking young asshole. And so he's pushing up there. So he looks back at me as I'm trying to get over, and I'm not trying. You know what I mean? I take what the road gives me. There's this old bald guy, in behind him who won't even let me in. He won't even let me in. It's not like I wasn't supposed to be there, It wasn't like, I don't know whether the guy realized that this is two lanes that merge into one. And it's the holidays, so maybe just be cool and let me in. Well, this guy wouldn't let me in, man. So I just sped up, got in front of him, and I was like, and he was looking at me, and he was blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? I was just like, what? You won't let me in? This is peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Is this only? I mean, because you're certainly not, you're certainly not doing that now. I'm not trying to get ahead of you. I'm not trying to cause an accident here. You're trying to cause an accident here. And I'm just like, why? Like, what is wrong with people? And I guess you figure he's an older guy. He's disgusted. He hates everybody. He must hate this time of year. And he thinks that I'm, mindless consumer and I'm out there and you're not going to get in front of me. Cause I'm the kind of guy who would just sit back. And if somebody wants to speed up and get in front of me, you know what I mean? Don't mess with my discount, bro. Right? That's the big thing now. Don't mess with my discount, bro.
Don't mess with my discount.
And so it's just insane. It's like people get insane. To me, it does not bring out the good in people. Only a certain portion of the population, it might bring out the good in people. But there's a segment of the population that's really, really fucking demented, man. Really demented. And I know you do a lot of cycling and stuff out there, so you don't. And I don't think you're as heavy pop as the population here, for sure. So you might not see it, but you experienced it before because you lived in the the metropolitan area up in the northern New York City.
Nueva York.
So, yeah. So you know what it's about. You see it. It's just like, it really kind of just forces people to do like insane things. And that part of it makes me kind of sick. And then of course, there's the part of the Christmas holiday that it's like, if you really want to be technical, if you believe in God, if you believe in Jesus, if you believe in this, he wasn't born on this day. He was born in the spring. It just, none of it makes sense.
Actually, he was born in September.
Yeah, it's September. Yeah, wasn't it? Isn't it 9/11? I mean, they've done the research, and it's kind of a 9/11 thing. So that's kind of weird there. If you want to get conspiratorial, and I'll do.
Well,
that.
it's very cultic. Look, the church, for the original Catholic Church in Rome, needed to socially engineer the population.
Right.
And the population was pagan.
Exactly.
And so they looked at it as the Saturn's Day, which was, basically the holiday of not giving, but taking.
Mm.
They flipped the script on it. It's not a bad thing that they did that.
Right.
But the reality is that they said, okay, well, we could get these people to sort of fall into line, by basically co-opting these pagan rituals into logos, right?
Right.
So it subverted evil,
right,
and took it away for 1,500 years. Today we just live in a period of time where people just have, everybody's wound up so tight because the system is. Mm-hmm. The system is using technology now to socially engineer us, and it's very effective.
I think it's causing brain damage and other things. It's causing a lot of biochemical issues inside the brain and everything, especially people that will talk on the cell phones, with it up to their head and things like that. So,
well, they started doing this back with the printing press. Is when they first started to get control, and it's morphed into the smartphone of today. Mm-hmm. Where everybody's on these devices.
Yep.
But the devices are, I'm not one of those people that buys into the meme, because I believe it is a meme. Mm-hmm. That, this technocracy that they're trying to bring about is even going to work. Is it working now? I have my serious doubts. There's novelties in certain things, and then people will get attracted to it. But then there's the downside. I think we're entering that downside era. People are going to, it's my personal opinion, I think people are going to be spending less time on their devices. because it's not necessary. It's really the most important thing are your interaction with other human beings, not with cell phones and iPads and computers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about changing the podcast name to like just put your phone away or just something, because you just see this, and the novelty doesn't wear off. Like the kid who wants the toy and wants the toy and wants the toy, and then he gets the toy and then he plays with it for like a week, and then it just gets put over to the side. This material driven thing is, it works with the cars. That's an ongoing thing. Got to have this, got to have that. And I work with somebody who bought a Tesla.
My gosh.
And I know, right? And he likes it. It's and he pays like $700 a month for it. So I don't understand. It's just one of those things. But he is he is a guy who kind of gets it. He kind of understands things. Like you can have conversations with him, and he's like, I believe that. You can really have a conversation with this kid, and that's one of the things I like about him. He's materialistic, but he's got a mind that he doesn't. The system doesn't trick him, or he's like, I see what you're saying there. Like the conversations that I allow myself to, things that I allow to filter out of my mouth. You got to be careful in society today. You trigger people, or even if you don't think that what you're saying has a triggering effect on it, it could like accumulate over time. And then, you become the bad guy because you're actually making sense, because that's not allowed anymore. And everybody just wants to live in their, in this bubble where they believe that the world actually operates, the way that they've been told that it does. And again, like, and I'll tune into Tucker Carlson. I think that he's trying to tell the truth. There's certain things that he won't say. But,
he can't.
and the things that he can't say. But then I'm like, last night's episode was and it's on, you can see it on YouTube. It's Tucker Carlson tonight. It's like 12, I think this was like December 25th show or something like that. It was I want to say it was a Christmas Eve show where it was pre-recorded, where he took like 3 or 4 stories and put them together. One was the Paul Singer one, where he basically, this hedge fund guy, who's, shipping jobs over as a result of what he's doing is shipping jobs over to, our ally in the Middle East. And he also, through his work, he destroyed the economy of Sydney, Nebraska, by just manipulating and doing all of these different things, kind of like in a Soros-y kind of way. And then he talked about how the universities are, if you look at the universities, they're constantly building, and it's just like a utopia. And then everywhere else is turning into a fucking ghetto. These universities are getting all this money. They're getting all this money. And he points these things out. He also points out, and I'm no like super Trump fan. I know you're not a super Trump fan. You just called it like it was. You were telling me before the election, you were like, I think he's going to win. And I'm like, I can't even imagine that even happening with the Clinton machine. And of course, you're pretty savvy, and you're a bright guy, and you called it. He won. And also, you pointed out the good things.
Always knew he would.
Yeah, you pointed out the good things that he was saying and that he was doing, and you also pointed out the bad things that he's doing, and you understand the big picture.
I pointed out that it would be a test, because he was saying the things that that people have been yearning to hear for generations. Mm-hmm. That finally somebody is telling it like it is.
By design.
Well, by design, it was that thing, but it also was the test. It's a very dangerous move for them to do that.
Right.
Because once you start talking about that, you can't pull the plug on it.
Right.
And where he is now, see, he massively won the general election. The meme that Hillary won the popular vote is completely false.
It's ridiculous too.
Completely. He got 70% of the popular vote, if not more.
Yeah. People are tired of the Clintons. People are tired of old rule, and they'll take, unfortunately, they'll take whatever new rule, especially if this new rule says things that, kind of, resonate with them. And of course, if anything that he said by telling the truth, and that's one of the things that Carlson said, he said, the thing that they hate the most about Donald Trump is that they get most bent and most triggered when he tells the truth. And so that's what he was doing. He was telling the truth to, the populace, whoever was going to listen. It resonated with people. But of course, if his message resonated with you, then you are this and you're that and you're this other thing. And all those other things on that sheet are, the basket of deplorable list. So,
well, that was just a projection. They know they're deplorable. They know that they are
they're projecting
the antithesis of morality. Mm-hmm. Let's call it what it is. Yep. That they represent the immoral behavior, an immoral life. That they they're the party of really become the party of Crowley, of Aleister Crowley. Do as thou wilt, and whether that means, you just can, do unto others regardless of what they do unto you. Mm-hmm. Look, the moral codes that we live by are ancient. And the reason why we have them is because they work.
Yeah. So
they're not a theory and idea. They're actually don't covet, don't bear false witness, right? Don't commit adultery. These things are not, these are not religions. These are basically a philosophy of how you can interact and live amongst other people in peace.
Yeah.
And who's against that? Well, chaos is against that. People that don't want people to live in peace. They want them to live always in a state of fear. And this is psychological warfare. So this is military intelligence, basically, what it comes down to.
Sure.
So Trump comes and points the whole thing out. Now, my thing with him was, we're going to see. I never said he was going to accomplish.
Right,
but he could to a great degree, because I understand how the country works. And, like I always say, most people have never read the history of Great American Fortunes or have read Triumphant Plutocracy.
Well, what people will say is, oh, well, that's always been that way. Anything that you tell them about, power and influence that is insidious and controls everything of importance, education, law, politics, anything like that. They're like, well, hasn't it always been that way?
Well, the answer to that is yes, it has, but there has been morality has always been the roadblock that has prevented them from, ramrodding us. Completely. They have to get us to. We are the producers, right? These are people that barely know how to wipe their own ass. Yeah. They don't know how to cook their own food. They can't do anything. They can't produce anything. So they have to rely on commoners.
The Queen and her family.
With the Queen, politicians, whatever hierarchy you have, it's based upon the productivity level of people at the bottom, right? We call us slaves.
Participating. It requires our belief, which means our love, basically. It requires us to believe in it. It requires us to participate in it. And if we stop doing it, sure, bad things would happen, but their control over us and everyone else who is a citizen or livestock, which our birth certificates or banknotes, it would collapse. Like, we should demand a new deal, somehow, some way. Like, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to dominate us, and you have dominated us. Most people can't even fathom that that's happening because we're so free. We're so free. They can't imagine that that's going on. So they're never, if you don't think that you're a debt slave or that you really are kind of a slave to their creation, and Clint has spoken about this many times, in detail and grand detail. we can't really change people's minds. They get involved in this. But the thing about you is that you were never like a rah guy, a Trump and all this other stuff. But you just said, yeah, it looks like he's going to win from what I see. And I was just kind of like living in my, and I can get pretty in depth with my belief and my neurotic, thought process when it comes to knowing this evil, understanding that there is pure evil out there that will and has been designed to hurt and kill and create disease and create wars to kill people and thin out the population and all these other things. So I bend towards that negative side. So I thought, okay, yeah, definitely. I can't imagine that if Trump trying to do anything, the opposite of what the Clintons are about. Some people still love them and think that they can do no fucking wrong. I mean, imagine the brain damage that goes along with that. But I mean, you were just like, yeah, this is going to happen, and you pointed it out. But the thing is that you understand. Like even when I was back in Oracle and I was doing and I was kind of getting connected with people, and people were finding out who I was, or just even listening to my program or whatever. You were there saying, hey, you were there understanding my level and where I was at and my understanding and how, the layers of this deceptive rotting onion, what the levels that I was going through. And then you just kind of simply pointed out some things as others did as well. But it really kind of put things into, I turned a corner there. And I think that it was a really critical corner that I needed to make. I was going forward, and I needed to make a right. I needed to make a left, or whatever. Not a political right or left, but, and then of course, when you said, hey, there's this guy Clint over here at RBN, and he's really making a lot of sense, and then all the different things. So, you kind of, seamlessly kind of just from my connection to you, it really kind of steered me in maybe in directions that it would have taken me a lot longer time, because I was still kind of on the Jones train there for a while, and you were really polite. You were polite about it. You were like, yeah, Jones is this. He's this conspindustry. He's making money off this. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's and
following a marketing plan. That's all.
Yeah. And it's just like he knows what things are going. He knew what was happening, and somebody said, "Well, why don't you do this, and then you can make some money out at the same time." I believe that he does care about. He does care about the world. He does care. He has children. How can you not? If you have children, how can you not care about what direction the world goes in? Even if you can have some kind of beneficial effect on it and make some money. That's a thing that you would have to contemplate, and definitely you would move in that direction if you had the opportunity. But at the same time, it started making sense. Like, this guy is related to all these people. He's related to he is the bloodlines of the Illuminati. He is related to the John McCains. He's probably related to George Washington, like Obama, and and all these other guys are go back to the founders of the land that eventually became called the United States of America. I don't know if it was a corporation back then, but I don't know if that was the goal, that it was going to become a corporation. But
it was
you have a lot more information on
corporatized,
that.
but not a corporation. The corporation was restructured after the Civil War. Mm-hmm. Was reestablished after the Civil War.
Yep.
And the Labor Code, which is martial law, was instituted, which was never rescinded. We've been in a perpetual state of war.
That's right, emergency
ever since, right? And the Civil War never ended. We're still in the Civil War. It never hostilities may have ceased, but that's what crime and everything is. It's the new battleground. People are still dying in the Civil War. They don't even know it, and that's because they have been coerced. They have been coerced, a long time ago. This is the battle that Michael Jones talks about with the battle that took place, but with the alliance with the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, the WASPs, and the Jews to defeat Catholicism, because Catholicism represents their biggest enemy. And so they've thoroughly infiltrated the Catholic Church today. So I thoroughly understand people's resentment towards it.
Right.
But it's kind of like if you want to play on a team, let's say you're in the NFL and you got an opportunity to play on a team, what team would you, if you're going to be an NFL player right now, what team would you want to be on?
The winning team, the team that's got the best, or one of the teams that's got the best chances of standing there at the end.
So if you get drafted or get traded to the New England Patriots, you're probably thinking as a player, wow, I could get one of those rings. I actually could be one of the few people that have one. And I could be a big shot, and there's marketing opportunities and everything that's involved in that. And so, when you make your choice in life, because life is a choice, and you decide, well, I want to play on a team. You could play on a perpetual losing team. You could, there's plenty of Jacksonville Jaguars out there.
Yes, that's
and
true.
I'm talking about, quote unquote, what you subscribe to as far as like a religious organization. Mm-hmm. They always make up all the Protestant churches. They're perpetual losers, and they were structured to be perpetual losers. Mm-hmm. Because you will never obtain, will never change your the level of morality you need that provides you the authority to tell the oligarchies, go F yourself, no.
Right.
The only one that has in history that's been able to accomplish that, like it or not, it's only been the Catholic Church. They're the only ones. It hasn't been any of the Calvary churches or the evangelicals or anything, because they are dealing in false doctrine.
Sure.
It's just, whether we're religious or not, the original church was the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. It was the one because, Jesus had ordained Peter to be the first pope.
Right.
Okay. But, we're human beings, and one thing that human beings can be counted on is making bad decisions.
Especially when coerced.
Especially when coerced. So, and then when you mix into that, you've got a professional revolutionary class of people that are set on its destruction because they want to elevate themselves as the ultimate power in the world. They're close to it, but it's not working out so well for them, because all around the world, people are starting to, realize that, this is not reasonable. It's not rational. The positions they come from, it's not rational to destroy your society for the sake of money. Right? And so people are starting to realize, wait a minute, how is this going to work? Where they always tell us, well, things change. They really don't change. That's a meme that people have caught on to. There's one certainty in life is that things change. Mm-hmm. Well, there's one certainty in life that there are people who want to make things, who want to destabilize you, and will make you believe in memes like that.
Right.
But many people around the world are discovering this now.
Right.
And they're starting to gain their moral authority back. And this is why we're in a period of the double down. What's great is they can't, the way nature works, because we don't live in a vacuum, right?
Right.
Trump's put in place by the oligarchs. He's selected, right? He's selected to be the pressure release valve to capture all these people, because what they need is they need people to to validate them, right? It's part of their law. If you can get the common people to validate your
manufacture the consent,
then they look at it as, you given consent to do whatever they want. And so Donald Trump comes into office, and here we are. I think it's firmly established that he is a member of the Lansky crime family.
Okay.
That he's all of his connections in New York, they go way back. The Lansky crime, but when Meyer Lansky died back in the 70s, his organization did not go away.
Murder Incorporated.
It gained more power than ever. It now controls the U.S. government. It controls states. It's everywhere. And they can only survive. They can only survive by convincing people that they don't exist. You know, the greatest trick of the devil is to make people think he doesn't exist.
That's right.
But the more they keep pushing their envelope, the more they keep pushing these rules, everything Trump, every speech Trump makes, people just watch it. Literally half the speech that he makes is completely and fully dedicated to Israel.
Seems to be.
Then eventually people are going to be like, well, you're the president of the United States, man. Well, since when is Israel the most important issue of our times? Most people are like, no, the most important issue of my time is I'm seeing my quality of life being destroyed. I'm seeing I can't keep up with the real rate of inflation. I can't pay the bills. I'm one bad incident away from losing everything that I got. And
that's the way the system was designed to have happen to people. Right?
It actually was not designed for that result.
Well, I mean, the eventuality of it is that people are going to, I mean, look, we got veterans who are homeless. We've got Los Angeles, which has this huge, homeless, I mean, it's just getting, it's becoming obvious that something is really, really wrong. But of course, the media doesn't focus on it. Media doesn't focus on it.
No, because the media is trying to demoralize and is doing everything they can. They have been commissioned to demoralize as many people as they possibly can.
Divide and conquer.
And because we do not have the moral authority to simply say no, we believe in these isms. Yeah. People fall into these traps. You got women that believe that because they live in the United States of America, they're being oppressed. You got black people that believe that we live in this ultra, racist country, right? That the whole system is racist against them and all that. And nothing could be further from the truth. But if you try to tell them, look, you've been duped, you've been lied to. Like an alcoholic, the first step to take in recovery is to first admit that you have a problem. And those that do, regardless what vagina they fell out of to come into this world, everybody has to basically take a step back and go, wait a minute. These are all superficial arguments people are having. The reality is that if you band together and you simply say no and you shut down the productivity level, your productivity, the oligarchs, the people that are controlling the system, will very quickly, I mean rapidly, within a week, will turn around and say, okay, and they will regress. But they keep pushing because they know the more they demoralize us, the more they can get away with. The more crimes they can get away with, because people have no moral authority to say, we want to hold you accountable. Then it comes back like, well, he he without sin, let him cast the first stone.
Right.
And then it's like, well, nobody can do that because nobody's living a moral life. They have no moral authority to tell these people no. Right. But what people didn't, Trump is not a representation of a moral life or successful life. Trump has lived a very, very troubled life. Everything probably from his relationship from his own father.
Or Fred.
Okay.
Fred.
Which
I don't know. Of course, I mean, when he said, my dad gave me a small loan of $1 million.
Well, I mean, look,
to get me started. Get me started.
Right?
Yeah.
But he had to sort of play the game. The world was going in a certain direction, and they were used as tools by the system itself. I think when the system is so against him, because that's one dichotomy in this that is, has yet to be revealed. Why why is the structure of the system so much against them? I'm beginning to believe that they're like I've always said, there's factions that are going on. There are people that are saying, look, we got a really good thing going here. Okay. If we just leave it alone, we could have a world where we're in control. Nobody thinks we're in control. Right. And everybody's off living their life, sending their kids to college, being good consumers and everything else. And we just get all of this wealth and power and can live these great lives and drive fast cars and do cocaine on women's butts and all this stuff. Okay. And so we have this underseeding level of immorality, but there's a coexistence between the two and there's a balance. And if we can maintain that, we could do this perpetually. This could go on for literally thousands of years. So my grandkids could be as powerful as I am. My great-grandkids could be as powerful. But then there's this other faction that believes like, no, it's never enough. We have to have it all. We have to have it all.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with a bunch of crybabies that are like, that they've convinced themselves that they're the chosen ones, right? And they believe this nonsense that they've been taught. And they think of themselves as, they are the master race. They are the supremacists. And nobody's going to tell them what they can and can't do. They're allowed to behave as immorally as they wish because they're not immoral. They have a pass. They have a get out of jail free card on their immorality. Nobody can question them. And this is what creates organized crime. Organized crime is just a secret society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they turn an entire race of people into a secret society and made them untouchable. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of them don't like it too. I mean, there's a lot of them that are within it that are like, wait a minute, this is not good for us, because eventually, as it has always throughout history, there's an incident, the straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back, and when that happens, they are going to suffer. I mean, they are going to suffer greatly.
Yeah, and they'll be sacrificed as well. I mean, the system will sacrifice its own. I'm pretty sure. So, looking at this impeachment, and they started talking about impeachment like as soon as he got he got in there, and I really kind of look at this whole thing as it was just like a big party that they had. Like, how much do we hate this guy? And then they all voted, right? And then, and then it was like, okay, here it is. Here's the articles. And it was just kind of like a hate thing, and then of course when they dropped, on Nancy Pelosi this week, like, what do you hate him? She was like, no, it's not me. It's not me. I am a child of God. Just like MS-13. Just like MS-13. I'm a child of God. And my brain is disintegrating in my head. But do not even call me hateful. Okay? Bye-bye. And I was like,
listen, it's a side. This is a sideshow. It's
so
a distraction.
Pathetic, dude. If she's leadership, makes me. And I mean, I don't think Trump is leadership. So, if anybody listening to this think that we're left or right, or this is not, if you're looking for a left or a right side, we're trying to make sense of it and bring it and corral it into something that makes sense, because it's a shit show. It's a sideshow, and it's entertainment. I mean, that's all it is. Look, here's the deal. Like I said, consciousness is rising around the world. People are starting to gain their moral authority. They're starting to recognize that morality is very important. That if you want to protect yourself and future generations, create a bloodline, whatever, then you have to live in a moral culture, right? It was Benjamin Franklin who was asked, well, you've got a representative republic if you can keep it.
And how do you keep it? You can only keep it if people come from a base of morality. I hate for people that are out there like that are consider themselves atheists or whatever. The whole system of our laws is based on this moral code, whether you like it or not. You could say, I don't believe in it. Well, you know what? You're an idiot.
Don't speak morality to me, okay?
Don't speak morality. Well, you live in a moralistic world. You do not live in a world of anarchy. I'm sorry. If we lived in a world of anarchy, you wouldn't be here. The very reason that for your existence today is because there was a moral code that allowed a civilization to be built. Otherwise, we'd be living in caves.
Yeah. Well,
and for people that go, we should return to the natural order of the natural world. That's fine, but you know what? We're not animals. We have the ability to be rational, and we have to be. We're not born with hair and means of being able to protect ourselves from the elements the way animals are.
Right. There is a semblance of. There has to be the illusion of morality. There has to be the illusion of this, and of course. If anybody's looking for morality out of a politician, okay, or a lawyer, or doctors that are basically just pimps or just tricks and prostitutes for big pharma, you're looking in the wrong place, and that's what I mean. That goes back to what you were saying, the moral code, everything else. It's just like we see it all around. I mean, there is evidence of this. My dad used to speak of it. My dad used to talk about morality, and I was like, what? What is this morality that he speaks of? What is this? What is that? And
if you hate that
now
talk,
it makes sense. And now it makes total sense.
If you hate that talk, it's because you've been brainwashed into thinking that is such an antiquated, old-fashioned, ridiculous concept.
I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, that we could just all like, if you're saying that, first off, tell me where do unto others as they would do unto you is a bad thing.
Oh, it's definitely.
Is that a bad thing in any way?
Not at all.
Any part of that people can say, oh, that's wrong. That people should be able to do whatever they will. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
For me, I didn't know what morality was. My dad was just like, he expected me, and probably my siblings to know what this was, or maybe he was just ranting, or he was just, making an example of what he saw that was detrimental. And, but today we have grown-ups that know what immorality is. Yet it's still the first thing that they look at on the menu.
Right.
Yeah. Rather than doing something, people think that just acting, nice to someone or being kind to someone,
or giving
this
to a
time
charity.
of year, or by giving to a charity, or by texting a code so that the Red Cross steals 2/3 of the money that went to Haiti, or some of these other man-made, catastrophes. And that's what people think. They just think like large portions of people think that one time a year they just, they're going to be good to people. They're going to give somebody a card and an Amazon gift card or something and be like, we're cool, right? It's that time of year. Da, 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 da,
It's
da,
the most
Christmas
wonderful time of the year.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's beautiful, and then, it's kind of reminds, there's one song that I really, really enjoy was the Bing Crosby, David Bowie one, where he kind of changed the lyrics, and it really meant something, like it was a heartfelt lyric. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but like for your child and my child too, and all this other stuff, and it's like, that's not what these people are thinking of. That's not at the very core. We are involved in something so. Unfortunately, we're involved in something and we participate in something that is so the
Insidious.
opposite, Insidious, and the opposite of that song. Or, you know, I mean, people love their families, but they have no idea that they're hurting and harming their, right. They have no idea. I mean, so you have to actually say, you really love your kids when you,
do they really love their children when they do so many things against the best interest of their children? Is it really? Do they really love their families?
Well, this is what everybody else is
doing.
This is what the lady and the mother up the street are doing. They send their kids to school because, well, they can't not send their kid to school because they have to work. You know, they have both the husband and the wife have to work. So then they turn their children over to people into a system of education that indoctrinates every single boy and girl into absolute bullshit lies, absolute and now with all this climate change and binary stuff, non-binary this, I mean, dude, it's just unbelievable. And I've seen just up close over the last 3 or 4 months, I've been, to certain places of education where it was just like a shock, because I remember being one of these kids and being stand in a straight line on the second tile, stand in a straight line on the second tile, and it's just this is not what, if it was benevolent, then you could see where that there was some goodness involved, but it was horrific, dude. It was really, really horrific just to be in that environment, to see all these largely unhappy children in the inner city, and it's, of course, I'll tell you more about it offline, but I mean, I don't even want to discuss largely that, but I've seen it, and it just brought back an acid fucking, retake. Not that I've really ever had those, but I mean, something where I see it and I'm like, this is awful. I would never want to do this again in my whole life, be like a prisoner in these, and the teachers. I'm like, if I was a teacher, who the heck would, I even said to one of them, I was like, if I had to do this, if this was what I chose, I said, I would run screaming. I would run away screaming. I just don't even know why I said that. I was like, is that bad to say? But I mean, they probably think about it all the time. Oh my God, what the hell did I choose? What the heck did I choose? Well, you're babysitting someone else's children. You're babysitting someone else's children, and you have to deal with all of the bad parenting. And then the kid walks in and he's like, hi, I'm yours for the rest of the day. And I'm this level of dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Billy. Hi, I'm Susie, and I'm 7 on a scale from 1 to 10. And it's like, fuck this, man. I don't even want to see that. I don't even want to experience that. It just now that that I understand and I see that this system, and I see this goes on every day, this regiment of deception, this regiment of just absolute indoctrination into total lies from other people who have been indoctrinated by the same lies. And it's just like dominoes that are falling, just continuously falling, like those elaborate domino things. That
it is kind of like an awakening to this. And they want to, they have to reset the system.
Right.
The system is on the verge of a reset. Within the next 5 to 10 years, it's coming.
Right.
It could come as early as 2020. We don't know. It just depends on any type of black swan event could take the system down in a minute.
Anytime.
Know it.
That's what I was thinking before I called you. At this most wonderful time of year, I'm thinking, when's the shoe going to drop? It could be as early as next week. It could be as early as January or February. It's whenever they want, and then at least at that point, I just hope that you're right about these camps that want to just continue, want to continue it, and then they kind of get their way. You know what I mean? It's like have the dysfunction continue rather than somebody just say, hey, we're just going to do like Robert Redford wanted to do in that Marvel show where they were going to fly over. And I mean, well, they're spraying every day anyway, so God only knows what the hell that's doing. But I don't know if you remember that one, right? It was one of
that was the first Avengers movie.
It was the first one? Okay, so yeah, it was just like, we're just going to go and we're just going to spray these people with this whatever. And it's just like, hey, that's funny because that's happening. I see that happening every day, and it's not just a movie. So,
well, a lot of that is because of this system of monetization and hypothecation that they've done, and that somebody has to be the surety of the debt in order to make the system work. And when they become unfunded liabilities, you terminate your unfunded liabilities.
That's right, man.
And so they're looking at a society of non-producers, but they've created this society of non-producers. And
the class system, they created the class system, the inner cities, and knowing that, and I think Tucker Carlson said, you'll have Nancy Pelosi say, we're all God's children, even though we're talking about, people that will, kill, and their whole thing is kill, rape, blah, 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 blah. And then he said maybe it's because she knows that that her family and her children would never be affected by that element. But
in this world,
that's right.
In this world, and the thing was, they have to convince they have to convince us all that life is not eternal. And when you have morality, you do understand that life is eternal, and that this is a test. And it's like to graduate to the next level. Your life force, your energy, your life force graduates to another level. That you have to be moral. You have to understand the system per se. Right. And we've become fat, lazy, and happy and satiated. Yeah. And that has led to this decrepit culture that we're in. That's not worth saving. I mean, the U.S.'s culture is a corporatized culture that is just completely off the hook.
They have destroyed people, and people have allowed themselves to. So everybody has to take part in the responsibility. But
everybody's got to look in the mirror, and everybody's got to look in the mirror and say, "Well, we can't fix anything until we unfuck ourselves." And the only way you can unfuck yourself is to gain your moral authority. That's the rule. That's like that's the unwritten rule of the world, that you will be dominated if you don't gain control of your own morality, because you're easily coerced into pursuing your own passions, and you become a slave to those passions.
That's right.
And that's not religious. That's just nature.
Yeah.
It's the way it is with everything. You become slothful.
Yeah.
And so we become slothful, and then they want to keep that. That has made them very rich and powerful.
That's right.
And so they're doing everything they can to keep the system going. They're not trying to destroy the system. They're trying to keep the system. They created the system of immorality. They're trying to keep it going.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah. So, 10 examples, right? There's an article here. It says the ACLU has started a campaign to make tampons available in men's restrooms across America. Number 2, senseless violence is on the rise all over the country. On Sunday, we witnessed the worst mass shooting in the city of Chicago. Now, was this 13 people? A question of a person of interest after 13 people were wounded, 4 of them critically. But I don't know that I even heard about that.
I didn't even hear about that, to be honest with you. But then again, I don't pay attention to the news because I only watch the news in the morning for the weather. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
What's it going to be today? Sunny, cold? Do I need a jacket, or
right?
It'll be too windy. What's the story? Other than that, who cares what they say? It's nonstop. It's pure propaganda at the highest level now. It's all doubled down.
Yeah.
They've doubled down so insidiously that it's obvious. And this is why we're in a really rapid period of change. There's going to be massive changes in 2020 on so many levels, because so many people are just going to wake up to the fact that it's like,
Wow.
we're seeing we're seeing the criminality taking place like on every level.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
And this never ends badly. This has happened many times before. This isn't the first time. There are certain things that are different about this time.
Right.
They think like, well, we've got the ultimate tool now. We can lock people down by using technology, and then we can, shame them through social media and all these things. These are all these new tools that mankind has never had before. Do you really think that it wasn't the case? Mm-hmm. I think they've always had means of doing it, and it's not going to work. And it works for a generation or two, maybe 3, and then all of a sudden it starts to come unwound. And we're right now coming unwound because of the immorality that was perpetuated on the World War II generation.
Right.
It was the immorality that those people had experienced that led to the baby boomers, the Generation X's, and to where we are now.
Right.
And so people are starting to figure it out. They're like, wait a minute, this is all just nonsense. This is BS. And so they're really super afraid that there'll be a rise of consciousness going on around the world, which there is. I think it's far more so in Europe and other countries than it is in the United States.
Oh yeah, by
but
far.
When it will get here, and it is starting here. But when it takes hold, they know that, look, 20-30% of the population basically saying you're a completely bankrupt and immoral government and culture, so therefore we're just not going to pay our mortgage anymore. You have 30% of the American people not paying their mortgage anymore, and the entire banking system collapses in a week.
Well, then they'll just blame it on whatever actions that people won't look at. I mean, is it a good thing? Is that a possibility for sure? But they'll just spin it just like they spun what happened in 2008, saying that it was people that took loans that there's no way that they could, so they blamed it on the public. I mean, they largely kind of blamed it on the public, saying that it was their fault, and didn't have anything to do with the deconstruction of Glass-Steagall with Clinton and Summers and in the mid 90s. Didn't have anything to do with that, so
the problem being is that the system was able to maintain itself because there was a degree of honest accounting and measures were taking place throughout the system,
right?
And now there is no longer any honest accounting and measures, or what was 80% of the system ran based on honest accounting and measures, and the 20% was corrupt. Mm-hmm. It is flipped. Now it's 80% is based on total corruption and only 20% based on honest accounting and measures. Mm-hmm. It's completely unsustainable because whatever you acquire, whatever level of achievement that you might acquire in your life can be taken away like literally in a day.
Yeah.
It could all go away in a snap of a finger.
That's right.
And we've never dealt with that level of instability before.
Sure.
I like to say, look, the system is just a big game of musical chairs, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem the system has now, the reason why all this stuff is going on today is because, let's say you've got 100 people circling 50 chairs, and the music is about to stop. And they're in competition, I'm not losing my seat. And if I lose my seat, I'm going to take you down with me.
Right. Yeah. So it's gotten to the point now where you've got so many people that, if they rock the boat in any kind of way, that they'll be like, well, we got this on you, or we got that. I mean, that's basically kind of what Epstein's job was, to kind of get people, find out what their weaknesses were, so that they can be
exploited,
or whatever, and basically just let them know very politely in a number of different ways, by sending pictures or something. You know what I mean? Sending, I don't know if you've probably seen it in movies before, where somebody sits there and they get a delivery and they open it up and there's pictures of them, with another woman or something, and then the note saying, "One wrong move, pal."
Boy, we'd hate to have something bad happen to your family life and everything.
Yeah.
That's the way it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now it goes far worse than that. They're like, they've so demoralized people. People wouldn't even think that's that big of a deal. Oh, well, they had a bad marriage, so he was okay to go out and do that, or she was all right to do that. They've excused that behavior for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now they're like, we need bigger. We need to have something even more. It's got to be even worse. And what could be worse than, taking photographs with somebody doing it with an underage child or something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really have to be morally bankrupt to even consider doing something like that.
Yeah.
Like, how does that even arouse you? Really? How do you find children arousing? I don't get it. Like,
they'll find your weaknesses or whatever, and then and if they have to, then they'll drug you, and then take your clothes off, and then make it look, kind of like
make it look like
make it look like, what is it? What was that that movie Weekend at Bernie's? That guy looked like he was alive the whole time. For God's sake.
Hey, he had rosy cheeks.
right.
He wasn't very blue. He looked pretty rosy to me.
Check your chat. I sent you.
Yeah, I saw your.
Okay. So I don't know. Let's just do like a quick break there. I'll hit that, and then I'll get back on the line. Then we'll resume. I can pause it.
Pause it. Yeah, hit pause.
All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. All right, so Cold Reality Radio, in case you missed it, podcast Christmas Day. My guest is Greg. We're talking about the State of the Union. We're talking about corruption, morality.
State of the Union.
The State of the Union. It was like, and just so that I could feel like I had some kind of Christmas spirit, I was singing, like the Christmas songs, changing the words and stuff, and then of course, Merry Kwanzonika Festivus, just to keep everybody in the loop, just so I don't offend anyone. So I'm like,
Kwanzonika I think is absolutely perfect.
Kwanzonika?
Kwanzonika.
Merry Kwanzonika.
Happy Kwanzonika.
Yeah.
Kwanzonika is just because it's so
bound to piss
perfect.
somebody off.
Because you know how they just love to create the, they love to create that whole thing. Like, where did Kwanzaa come from? Who do you think it came from?
From the ACLU.
Who do you think it came from? It came from the Wandering Who? Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we're just going to make and how gullible people were to buy into it and believe it. So, there's this ancient African holiday. Like,
right.
Seriously, come on, get out. Yeah, right.
It's about inclusivity. And I hope people are having a good time. I mean, I know that Hanukkah started, what was it, the last Sunday, I think it was, maybe Saturday or Sunday over the weekend. Absolutely, man. Just, if that's what you want to do, get out there and
celebrate your ritual of death. How did that become even considered? See, this is another sign of the immorality that permeates the system. People don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I have not said Happy Hanukkah to my Jewish friends in years. I just won't do it. Like, I'm not going to validate your your ritual of death. You people are warped.
I don't even know what it is. Honestly, I don't. It's just, I know it's 7 days of, and all these things. And, I don't even know what it is. I never really even studied it. I found out this morning about the whole, and not 2 people knew it. She knew it.
They were able to survive.
My bestie, she knew it, and you knew it about the pagan, the ritual that the pagans had to be brought into the whole, to
be brought into the fold with Christmas, which is not a bad thing. I have no problem with them coercing pagan holidays because people were like, it was a tradition, it had been set up, but as consciousness and morality rose, as human beings, we like to celebrate things. There's nothing wrong with that. You should get together with family and celebrate. They celebrated the harvest. They celebrated throughout the year. There's a number of. That's why they give us our holidays now, because they know we need these little pressure release, times that we can get together and enjoy each other, the fruits of our labor.
So we don't rise up, right?
It keeps the plebes and the commoners under control. The problem is they've turned it into a complete merchant holiday.
That's right.
That doesn't reflect anything of what it's supposed to.
Right.
And now it's like, the good thing is that this Christmas, all the sales are down everywhere across the board. Okay. Not even by a little. They're down Amazon? By a lot.
And I think that they'll determine, the evil in the world determine to be like, the sales are down. It's an all-time low. Let's just start killing them.
It's been a progression over the last 25, 30 years. What Christmas used to be 30 years ago, it is nothing. On dollar for dollar sales, 50, 60, 70% down from what it used to be. It's nothing like it was. And
yeah.
They need that because that's how they get rid of a lot of inventory. That's how they, it sets the tone for the merchants for the following year. It's not working as much anymore. And they keep telling us it does. Oh my God, this is great. And then come February, because they got to wait about 5-6 weeks before they come out with the revised numbers. And this year, already they're saying Christmas sales are down in excess of 30%. They might say 1% or 2% from last year, but they'll revise that and go, "Oh man, we had a horrific Christmas." Right? People are spending far less than they used to. They don't have it to spend.
Right.
Like, well, if I spent $500 on Christmas last year, this year I can only spend $300. Because you people have come in and taken money out of my pockets to pay for all this BS that you do. With fines, penalties, taxes, and these other things. What do you expect? Oh, no, just use your credit card. Well, the credit card's maxed out. What do you want from me? Right. Stop taking all my money, and then I'll spend some on Christmas. You guys you don't know when to say when.
No.
This is just a nightmare that perpetually goes on and on and on. It's like, oh.
It's an insult, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
It's compounding insults. But,
put us all in a state of constant dis-ease.
That's right.
What do you expect?
Inject us with poisons, and then then give us cell phones and be like, "Oh, they're perfectly safe. They're so safe." And then it fucking some kind of binary connection or something between what's injected into you and then the cell phone, and then you're like fucking crazy.
The cell phone is just a tool. As far as it being, got to understand that we live in an. Even without our technology, we live in an electromagnetic environment.
Right.
So we are being blasted with radio waves from natural sources, just from the sun.
I want that.
Okay.
I want the sun, but they're covering it up with something. They're making fake clouds and junk.
What they're doing is they're trying to reflect those radio waves back down at us, because that's the only way they've got this. They're at a constant war with God. That's really what it boils down to. You've got this group of people that are like, we have to destroy everything that's of nature. because that's the only way they can elevate themselves, is to be gods. The problem is they can't overcome the laws of physics. So if they want all of this technology to be wireless, then they're going to have to find a way to keep, to reflect those waves down. And this is what it's all about. It's more to do with that than anything else.
Maybe they're trying to bounce it off the firmament.
Well, I don't know. They lose a certain amount of, they've always had that problem, especially in the wider bandwidths. Now they're like, well, we could use microwave technology, call it G5. But that is the biggest scam going, because it's like,
right.
Wait a minute.
I hope you're right, bro.
How are you going to base an entire communication system online as sight? Right? I mean, so what they're doing is they pulled a scam on us. 25 years ago, the fiber optic network. The fiber optic network is 5G. We already have it. Now what they'll do is they want to monetize something, because they're like, well, this has been the whole modus operandi for over 100 years. AT&T did it. All the Bells did it, because they were like, well, we need to connect everybody so people can have telegraph wires and then telephone wires and then this and that thing. Who paid for that? It was all the government. These companies didn't pay for anything. They were just in charge of monetizing it, collecting funds and taxes and all that. The government paid for all that. And the government doesn't pay for anything. Government just pledges the labor, the productivity of their citizens to the future. Now they can't do that very much anymore. And they're like, who's going to be the surety of all the debt? Well, let's just keep going, and, we'll just blast it out and come up with a solution later. So here was their thing. They ran into a problem in the late 90s with the fiber optic system. They knew that once they cable up the whole country, how are you going to monetize something later on? And if they can't monetize something, they're going to go broke. So, we're going to come out with this new technology called 5G. And 5G is just 4G ratcheted up. They're throttling everything back right now. So they're going to call it 5G. They're going to set up towers. And most of those towers are just going to be dummies, because unless they start cutting down all the trees, we're not having 5G.
Maybe it's just to freaking annihilate us all.
I think it's just to steal a couple of $1 trillion, because that's what they do. That's what everything is about. That's what the healthcare debate is about. Everything is about monetization, hypothecation.
The bridge to nowhere. The bridge to nowhere.
They don't get this.
Where's that bridge going? Where's that bridge going? You just built like a 500-mile bridge, and they were like, nowhere really. Get on it, drive it. We'll charge you a toll. Where are we going? Right. I don't know.
Let's develop this whole. Let's develop these communities and have all this construction and all this building going on. And when they say, "Oh, this is a growing area," is it really growing? No, it's not really growing by organic means. It's growing through artificial means. Is that jobs will be created, money will be spent in this community if we expand our suburbs out and destroy all the farmland. That's going to put a lot of people to work. There's going to be a lot of money created. It's going to be this illusion of an economy is going to take place. And you drive around what used to be countryside just a few years ago, and you see all the construction equipment and the cranes and they're building. Like, who's buying these houses? Most of these houses are sitting empty. There's a massive inventory of empty houses in the United States right now. And yet they tell us we have an inventory shortage. It's like, no, we don't have an inventory shortage. There's probably 10 million more available houses than there are people in this country. So, we'll just bring in more immigrants to create the false demand. That's all they're doing. Why? Because they need somebody else to be the surety of the debt so they can play their middleman games. Every government program is like any other trade, okay? I was in finance. You know that I was involved in in commodity trades, right? And commodity trades work. Let's say you're a small country. Let's say you're Iran. Just using Iran as an example. Okay, Iran needs corn. Okay, so they have to import, let's say, 1 million metric tons of corn to feed their people in order to create the produce and everything that they need. You know, the goods that they sell to their population. All right, 1 million metric tons of corn at $10 a metric ton is quite a bit of money, right? Yeah. So what the banks do is they started creating. This was a couple hundred years ago. They started this. They started monetizing these things. Oh, you don't have to transfer any gold or anything and have to take a chance on your ship getting sunk or anything. We can handle it all through paper transactions. We call them documentary letters of credit. Okay. So the boats get loaded, a report that the boat is fully loaded, right? The ship is loaded, is created, and once that ship leaves port, what they call once the grain crosses the rail, that money then gets transferred from the buyer's account to the seller's account. All right? Now, in between that, within that transaction, just like in real estate, you got agents. You got buy-side agents and you have sell-side agents. And there's commissions that are paid out anywhere from 2 to 5% of the transaction. Okay? So, and that's the way it is on every monetized instrument that all of the banks process. Doesn't matter on what level. So if you're the United States government and you want to have universal health care, okay, Medicare for all, they have to monetize that. That money has to be created. A documentary letter of credit, I'm just using it, it's actually something else now, is created. And then there's people on the buy side of that and the sell side of that documentary letter of credit.
Right.
Okay, the politicians are in there. So when you see Bernie Sanders talking about Medicare for all, he's looking at, this is the mother of all monetization schemes.
Everybody gets a BMW.
Right.
And an education.
And what he looks at is, me in the middle, I'm going to get probably a 0.5% or as much as 1% in my fee, in my cut for getting this deal done. And if you're talking about something that's $10 trillion and you get 1% of that, you are a very, very rich man. All right. And it's on all levels. This is how real estate works. If you watch any of those real estate shows, you know, that they have on TV and, if you watch HGTV or whatever, this is how these people make a living. They make a living through the middle in the fees. Every real estate broker. So they're brokers. Okay. And they're all getting a piece of either they're getting paid by the seller to get the product sold, or they're getting paid by the buyer for going out and finding the opportunity and so that the transaction can take place. That's all these guys are doing. They're just real estate brokers.
Just a big old market.
That's it. It's a marketing strategy. And they go, well, these people don't realize and to them, they're told none of this matters because we're creating the money out of thin air. All right? And the consequences of that are never explained to them. Most politicians, if they were asked who's the surety, if somebody just said, what is your cut? All right? If I don't care what the subject is, what is your cut as a politician for getting this deal done? Are you on the buy side or the sell side? What position do you come in? Do you have the authority? What is your mandate?
I'm sorry, that's a matter of national security.
Oh, we can't talk about that. Da, 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 da. And then it's like once it gets into the bankers' hands, they figured out a way to what they call rehypothecate, to use the paper as an asset to back up more assets. And they think that they can do this perpetually. The problem is ignorance is bliss until it isn't. And we're at this point now in our society. We have compounded so much debt on the debt of previous generations that any uptick, any normalization of monetary policy, which is honest accounts measures, means that the whole system collapses. There's no way they can raise interest rates, that the Fed could turn around and say, we're going to normalize interest rates and raise them, the overnight lending rate to 5%. That would instantly shut everything down. There would be a credit freeze, bang, everything is over. So they're going to ride this until a black swan event happens and they go, whoop, we can't monetize it. We can't rehypothecate anymore. We can't do this. We can't do that. So it's a race to the bottom. Nobody can stop it. Right now, the model is get what you can out of it, because if you can acquire as much chips on the board, when the game is reset, hopefully you'll be able to hold on to as much of it as you can. So you got to get as much as you can. The problem is that's an immoral way of thinking.
Right.
It's a defeatist way of thinking, but that's exactly what Trump was brought in to do. This is going hog wild. There is no coincidence that this healthcare debate is taking place while Trump is president. Because all these things happen under the guise of this guy's going to come in and protect us and change the system and make it right. Nobody can make this system right.
Nope.
It is not. It is an impossibility. It is too complex, too big. And if he did it, the whole thing would come crashing down, because he's dealing with a society of completely immoral beings. If we were a moral society, yeah, he could. Because then he could say, look, you guys are going to probably go 3 years without celebrating Christmas, okay? You guys are, the NFL is not going to be, your big distraction anymore, right?
Yeah.
It ain't going to matter what the Philadelphia Eagles do, because we have to go after all the degenerate gamblers and shut it down. Mm-hmm. So it's because your team and your league is owned by these people, organized criminals, that chances are they may not be around. So all the little distractions, all the, the girly girl stuff and the makeup and the movies and all that stuff stops, because now it all has to be based on reality. And nobody wants to face reality. Nobody wants to deal with it. Even people that are out there saying, oh, this system is bad and we need to do it. Well, are you prepared to look in the mirror and accept your responsibility? Because the only way that you can hold others accountable is by holding yourself accountable first. Mm. And we're getting closer to that point. Some people say it'll never happen. It's happened before. Believe me, it'll happen again. It's just you're not seeing it. But it's out there and it's coming. And I think the best of times are actually we're on the forefront of the best of times. I'm not a defeatist. I'm not a collapsitarian.
Collapsitarian.
Yeah, I don't think, oh my God, it's going to be Mad Max and all that. Like, no, that's the movies.
I'm with the collapsitarian party.
Yeah. Well, what we're dealing with now is what we have now is Trump and the Democrats. This whole system is all based on the collapsitarian model.
Yeah.
It's like it's not perpetual, and because they never allowed the system to clean itself out. And that's what recessions would do. That's where people taking risks would do. Our entire, right now, the whole game is based on risk on, regardless of the risk. And it doesn't work, because now it compounds. Now you've got all of the corporations in the United States being hollowed out and around the world through the corporate buybacks, mm-hmm. the stock buybacks. And these companies have to take on vast sums of debt in order to buy their shares back. And then their inside executives sell their own personal shares, exercise their options to sell their shares into the rise of the stock. And if a company doesn't do it, you got hedge funds out there like the Singer guy who will buy up your company and do it. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's literally like, if I don't take it, somebody else will. So I don't have any choice. Do I like it? No. And a lot of CEOs are out there scratching their heads and saying, this is not going to end. This is going to end very, very badly. There is going to come a point where the companies they're all going to be GE. And it's that way now with GE. GE is Literally, GE took on $30 billion to buy its own shares. And then its stock, because all the executives, inside executive, exercise their options. Now their stock has fallen to $8 a share. They basically are a junk bond company. And all the pension funds and everybody that are holding the corporate debt, they're with a hot potato. Because as soon as if the rating agencies, or when the rating agencies are forced, they have no choice, they lower the bond ratings of these corporations to C rated.
Right.
Okay, which is right now you got GE, Ford, General Motors, AT&T, you name it. They're Amazon, right? These companies are being bled dry through the back door. You ever see the movie Goodfellas? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Where they're in the restaurant and he talks about all the guys. Well, this guy, talks this, and then it's like, you think I'm funny? That part.
You're right.
And he's explaining in the movie where the guy has a problem. He goes to Paulie and says, I need help. Come in business with me. Paulie just uses it to run scams and everything through. Like, you get a delivery of booze in the front door and you walk it out the back door. Nobody cares.
Money laundering stuff.
Right. So they wind up bleeding the business, running up the debt to nothing, and then you light a match to it. And that's exactly what they're doing. This is what all organized criminals do. Mm-hmm. And we are seeing that because organized criminals have taken over the entire system because they have bankrupted the morality of the population, of the world, really, to fall into these traps because they have no moral authority. They can do this with impunity. The problem is that they don't know when to say when. They don't have a balancing act. They don't say we go to this point and then we have to stop and we have to sort of let the system rebuild. That's what they used to do before. They can't even do that anymore. They can't stop because now it's like if I don't go along with this, somebody's going to come in, buy my company out, kick me to the curb where I get nothing. And then they're going to exercise the options, and they're going to wind up walking away with billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. But that perpetuates the whole system. So this is the reason why we have our entire society is literally we're down to the last chapter of where this can go. The whole system has to be reset. Everybody knows it. And then what are you going to do about all these? What are you going to do about all these organized criminals when it happens? All right. And they're thinking maybe we can get away with it. This is why Jeff Bezos got his fake divorce.
Fake divorce. Let me explain.
That's total. It was to protect his assets.
To transfer some of them to his wife, right?
Right. Takes half his money, transfers it to his wife. Now that money can't be touched. So if the system collapses, they're going to go, well, Jeff, you obtained you never paid a dividend to your shareholders. You violated all these rules. You are a criminal, which means your wealth was acquired through ill-gotten gains. Give it back. Well, the money that transferred to his wife in the very rapid 3-month divorce settlement. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm, right.
Okay. That money can't be touched. And the most that he could shelter that way was like, so Jeff Bezos, the guy who handles all the communications for the CIA. Do you think that if his wife said to him, I'm not happy and I want a divorce, that he wouldn't laugh in her face? He's like, bitch, I can hire somebody for $100,000 and kill you. All right. You ain't getting $70 billion from me. You can just go take a flying leap out the window. We can make it. I have access to people that'll make it look like an accident. All right. So don't even, if you want to not live with me anymore, you want to go out and do the cock carousel and ride on, get every young stud in the world. I'll build you $1 billion estate. Okay. Take care of you for the rest of life. I don't care, but you're not divorcing me. This is a corporation. This is a business that is now firmly established, and you ain't getting it. And what do you think she's going to do? She's going to challenge that? Come on. Really? You really believe that Jeff, the guy that is a front man, His name is Bozo.
Right.
Okay?
So basically,
Bill Gates was the gatekeeper.
they're still together?
Steve Jobs, job creator. No, they announced their divorce last Christmas. And then they announced that it was finalized by the 1st of March, 2019.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
Are you telling me that a $150 billion estate could be settled out with the way the lawyers work in divorce court and everything? Oh my God! And people buy it. It's like people should just look and say that's not even possible. A divorce like that would take years to settle. And who is Jeff Bezos? Jeff Bezos is a guy who's got all of these CIA connections. Come on. Really? I mean, if I'm a man in that position and I've got hundreds of billions of dollars, right? $150 billion at my disposal, and I'm running all the communications and the data for the U.S. government, including the CIA, you don't think I can make a phone call and have you disappeared?
Well, I mean, it can.
You don't think I could buy the judge? You don't think I could pay off with the level of corruption today? Okay? Come on.
So it was really.
I would laugh at her.
By your assessment, it looks like it was a protection of asset.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was nothing more than that. Right? It was like, well, you know what? I put it in your name, but it'll be in your name. But if you think that you will have any control over it, you got another thing coming. You probably we give you a little allowance, whatever. They're very much together as they've always been together. That's my personal opinion. Only these, he probably didn't structure himself in a foundation like Bill and Melinda Gates, right? Because Melinda Gates, everything is going into their foundation. Nothing is going into Bill Gates' name. And Bill Gates is another guy, right? He's another one of these fraud frontmen that was put up because all of these corporations, they don't get this big without them being government, NGOs.
That's right, Google, the whole deal, man.
The whole thing, all of it. It's all engineered.
It's all predetermined, pre-planned
by these oligarchs that are basically what they want to do is they don't want any new money. They don't want any competition or any innovators coming from the commoners anymore. They think that era is over. And they're sadly mistaken, as they've always been mistaken. They're just really, they're clouded by their own hubris. Their judgment is clouded by their own hubris. And it's sort of like it's just a sign that the commoners has to rise up against them and clean out the riffraff amongst them. And then they'll reset, restructure, reorganize, and the game will start all over again. On the back side of this, when this thing happens, because a downturn, I'll tell you what, they set us up with the Great Depression, because the Great Depression was a mean. They did everything they could to keep the Great Depression going as long as it did. The reason is they needed to be able to look back and say, it was so horrific for so long and so many people suffered that we can never allow that to happen again. When we have had 7 depressions in the United States since its inception. And you know what? Most depressions last 3 days. Because you know what a depression is? It's the music, it's the game, the music stopping, and not enough seats to fill all the asses.
Right.
Okay? And those that lose, their assets get broken up, sold pennies on the dollar, it restabilizes the marketplace, and everybody jumps back in. And we've had multiple collapses. Like I said, but everybody says, oh my God, look what happened in the Great Depression. The Great Depression was, they shut down the credit markets and they wouldn't reopen them. That's all it was.
Right.
The banks could have done it the very next day. It wasn't the stock market collapsing. That was all fallacy. The stock market, it's the bond market that matters. The stock market is just shits and giggles. But people don't understand the system we live in at all. Like zero conception of it. They think that their vote counts. They think that these guys like Trump or anybody actually has the ability to come in and change anything. They are simply there to be the administrative system of the oligarchs that control them. That's it. And they will not deviate from what the oligarchs tell them to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not going to happen. They get a little leeway. They get a few things that they can adopt as pet issues. Okay? I think one of Trump's pet issues was China. And he's not wrong about China. He's the only one calling it for what it is. China is an absolute mess, and it needs to be dispatched. The Chinese are not a virtuous culture. They are a culture that is highly destructive to nature and everything else. They've always had that problem. If you talk to anybody from Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, people in Southeast Asia that are under tremendous influence by the Chinese because of all their money,
Yep.
They see the destruction that these people do. It's like, how can you cannot base the next level of our civilization based on China. It's a recipe for disaster because they don't know when they totally live in the moment. If somebody tells a Chinese man that he could get a hard on by putting rhino horn powder in his coffee in the morning, they'll kill every rhino in the world so that they can have a hard on. And wait a minute,
run.
Don't kill all the rhinos. You're killing the goose. Don't cut down all the trees. They'll cut down all the trees. You know what they're doing in China now? People think that Chinese culture is like all this great. The Chinese government is going around the country and tearing down all the ancient monuments. Okay, all of the Buddhist monuments and the ancient monuments that were built thousands of years ago, and they're rebuilding them and they're making them like Chinese, like trying to turn them into Chinese tourist traps.
Really?
Like, why wouldn't you just keep the castle? Why wouldn't you just keep the temple the way it is? Why do you tear it down and rebuild the temple and you make it with all this cheap materials? It's because what they're doing is they're trying to erase their own history, and they think there's no consequences to that. Eventually you would think, and also you would think that the common people in China would rise up against that, but they have been mesmerized, deer in a headlight with all of this, materialism.
Right.
It's not a society that's based on morality at all. And so when they go into another country, they just destroy it. They destroy everything. I mean, look what they did. I mean, they have no regard towards even litter. It's why Chinese company, there's no environmental standards there, And there's tons of videos. You can watch what they have to deal with just on train rides. They have these beautiful, bullet trains in China.
Right.
That go 150 miles an hour, take you from one city to another. These trains, when people get off the trains, it's trashed.
The train is trashed or just trash?
Trash. Everybody just throws their garbage everywhere. No regard. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Listen, a lot of people in China, they have no concept of even using toilets. Right? They walk down the street. They got to take a shit. They just squat and take a dump on the sidewalk.
So basically, San Francisco is becoming China.
How do you? And so you're going to take these people, and you're going to. It takes generations of social engineering to engineer them out of that. Okay, and with in England, in the West, we have had that. There was a time when we were the same way, but through generations of training, morality training, in particular, because we pursued logos, okay, for 1,500 years. And that engineered the savagery out of us. It brought civility to the world. So you're going to take all these people who are not civilized and put them into a civilized system? Is it any wonder that all of the immigrants, that go into Europe are just ravaging the countries that have invited them in? Raping women and doing all the stuff they do?
I guess not.
They need time. It took us time to become civilized. It's going to take them time as well. So they should be isolated or at least quarantined to the point where we go, unless you could prove that you are civil, we can't invite you in. Okay? But if you're...
They're like feral, right?
It is.
Like
it's like
feral.
raising feral cats, man. I'm telling you. It's nuts.
And I
And
mean,
if anybody thinks that you can survive in a house filled with feral cats, I mean, you got another thing coming. So you can invite all these feral cats into your neighborhood, and that's what they are, basically. They're feral.
and where are they coming from? They're not coming from like, the major cities. Are they coming from, or does this happen in the major cities where they're just taking dumps everywhere?
Well, what they did is when they expanded, like in China, when they expanded their cities, started building cities out of nowhere, and they needed to hire people. They were building factories. They're moving jobs over there. Well, we got 1 billion people here. Build the factories here. The problem is that out of the 1 billion people, there were only about 200 million of them that were civilized. 800 million people lived in rice paddies. These are people when they had to take a shit, they just pulled the pants down and dropped. Okay?
Really?
Now you take them into those people out in the countryside, and they didn't have access to plastic and all that stuff. They lived very nomadic lives. And now you take those people and say, boom, we're going to move you to Shanghai. And you're going to work in the Fox factories and build iPhones. All right? These people don't know how to, this is so different from the way that they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
That they're just like, well, anytime I had to take a shit, when I grew up, anytime I take a shit, I just pulled down my pants, take a shit. All right. Mm-hmm. What do you mean I have to go to the bathroom? What do you mean I got to punch a clock? What do you mean I got to do this? But they want they get all this stimuli, right? You can have cars, you can have this. Look at all these nice things that you can have, but they haven't been trained in order to even understand what those things even mean.
Right.
And this is not just China. This is India, China, Africa, all of these third world countries, Philippines, parts of the Philippines. These are people that didn't, and the people that did live in cities. Mm-hmm. A lot of them, when you see, they segregated all of these uncivilized people amongst their own cities into these ghettos. They live in tin shacks. And there's a reason they're in the tin shacks. It's not because, they're in perpetual poverty. They're so uncivilized, they can't even get those people to understand the concept of how to use a toilet. Mm-hmm. So they segregate them off to that. Now they're inviting all those same people into all the major cities and everything around the world. This is where, this drives people nuts. And, if you watch like a good one to understand this is watching a video from these guys that do what's called AVD China. Mm-hmm. These are a couple of guys, one guy from South Africa, another guy that lived in China for 10 years, married Chinese women. And they put a lot of great videos where they were riding around China on motorcycles and explaining the Chinese culture, what they loved about the Chinese culture, the Chinese people. And there was a lot really to look forward to. But and I've talked to them, I know a lot of people that live in Thailand, that live in Cambodia and Vietnam. And what they say about the Chinese that come into those places, they're like, it's hard. What they do is they destroy everything. And now the Africans are figuring out, because the Chinese and the South Americans are figuring it out, because the Chinese were there saying, we'll give you money, we'll build projects and blah, 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 blah. And they just devastate everything in there. They have no concern. They don't care.
Right.
There's an elephant, shoot it.
The world's a mess. The fucking world's a mess. All these feral Chinese. Just fucking shit everywhere.
Chinese taking a dump on the street. One of the AVD videos I'm watching, they're on a motorcycle, they're at a traffic light, and they're having a conversation through headsets with each other while they're and the guy's looking, they had a GoPro camera on their helmets, and they're looking around, and there's this guy walking up on the sidewalk, and he just squats down and takes shit.
Do they even pick
it
up?
That's one of the problems with China.
Do they even pick it up?
No, they just shit and walk. There you go. Take a shit, pull your pants, don't even wipe your ass. Just
oh my God, no wiping. God, help us.
Well, you don't have anything to wipe it with, so just.
Oh no.
There are videos on YouTube of Chinese women at bus stops that just pull up their skirt and take a shit.
Oh, and the women. Oh my God. So I mean, is this like on the way to work or like?
Yeah, and it just.
I mean, at to work at the rice paddy.
No, they're
after
in the
working
city.
in an office
They're in
building.
Shanghai. They're working in an office, but they're dressed nice.
Dude, and they're going in there with like unwiped hindquarters.
Oh yeah, yeah. They don't. It's like, well, if you don't have it, you don't have it. Just you dump your load on the street or on the just lift up a cheek when you're like scoot over to the side of a bench and shit off the side of the bench and get on the bus and forget it.
Jesus, God help us. Oh, it's all coming to an end, thank God.
It's just like, are you serious? Really? We're dealing with this now? If you go on YouTube and look at that, like Chinese people shitting in the streets, there's probably hundreds of videos of that.
Yeah, right.
If they haven't taken them all down, because China is like, oh, that's really, that's the thing about China. They're like, anything that brings negative publicity to China, they're totally up against. So I don't know if they're still there or not, but I think the guys at AVD, when they showed the Chinese guy taking a shit, that was they were hit with a strike from YouTube.
Oh no.
It's like, oh, and then you got all these guys that are in the investment world that talk about the great things about China. It's like, no, dude, China is so screwed right now. They were given too much too fast. They didn't have a time. They didn't have the generational time. They were looked upon by the oligarchs as a means of being allowing them to offshore the inflation by putting jobs over there, and that they created the problem was, like, even the Chinese, I think at the time, and I don't think they expected this when Nixon went over there in 1972, because that's what he went over there for.
Oh my God, dude!
Are you watching something?
I'm just seeing something here, man. Okay, hold on a second. Oh shit, how do I got out of there? All right, hold on, man. Somehow it kicked me out, man. Chinese shitting in public or whatever.
Shitting in the streets.
Yeah, Chinese public shitting, Scatman's paradise, shitting in public. Oh my God.
Shitting in public. And all the third world countries do it. Doesn't matter.
I'm a scat man.
Oh my God. Oh dear.
I'm a scat man.
He's a scat man. Give it There he goes. I'll send you what I'm looking at. Oh my God.
That's a great song to put that to, isn't it? The scat. He's the Shat Man.
The Scat Man's paradise. That is outrageous, man.
All over the place over there, Like, really?
Unbelievable, dude. And it wasn't even like, and I don't know whether they eat a lot of meat or anything over there, because it's just really just kind of like shot out. Kind of like a rope. Like a really, really brown rope.
Yeah. Well, and they want to bring that. They want to bring that to a neighborhood near you.
All right.
Yeah. Says, well, look at it doing it. They're doing it in San Francisco, right? You think they're, New York, San Francisco, the homeless. Oh, the homeless are shitting in the street. A lot of that's the immigrants that are coming in. They're bringing in Africans and Indians and people that they have no concept of toilets.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly, you put them in a city like New York where there's restrictions on toilets, okay? Like, you can't use a toilet in New York unless you're a paying customer.
That was something that when Carlson had de Blasio on, he was like saying that there was no, Tucker was saying that there's no punishment for people that are just like are defecating on trains and Publix and stuff like that. And de Blasio was like, there totally is, Tucker. I don't know what you're talking about. But apparently that's what's happening here. And I think it is kind of like a clash of civilizations, just like the migrant movement from Libya when they went into Libya and raped and pillaged and killed there, the U.S. empire along with the Crown Corporation. And then the same thing going on over in Syria when they went over there and said, oh, he's killing his own people. And then you had that huge migration into Eastern Europe. And now it's like, you got people that have lived a certain way, like you were saying, for a long time.
For thousands of years.
For thousands of years, they live in a certain way. And I mean, in most cases, I think they probably, have bathrooms or something. Maybe in Syria, I would hope that's the case there. But I mean, these people that you're saying, I mean, they're just shitting wherever, dude. I mean, this guy's just Scatman's like. He's like, oh damn, I gotta go. Be like, well, yeah, there's a porta potty over there. It's like, no need for that, pal.
No need, just go right here. No problem. He's the shot man.
Oh yeah, he's the shot man, and he'll crap wherever he likes.
And then you're going to bring in thousands of those people. Then your cities wind up smelling like shit.
And then all the diseases that come with
there's your real
fecal infestation.
That's your real problem, right? What do you think the Black Plague was from? People shitting in the streets. They would move from the countryside to the rural farms into the cities like London and Paris. And then you got them trapped there because now they're laborers. But they haven't changed their ways. Like when you grew up in a rice paddy, you got to take a shit. You just pull, just squat and shit. You're like a horse, like a cow. You got to shit, just shit.
Yeah.
No big deal. Just move on and don't step in it.
You can argue nature is nature, but
right. And hey, that the flies come in and eat it up a couple of days. Blah 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 blah. But you're out there in the middle of nowhere and. Now you're in an area of confined area. This, one of the things I always tell people about, and I've talked with you about it, is when you look at it, and this is brought out in Gustavus Meyer's The History of Great American Fortunes about the serfs, the indentured servants that were brought here to the United States to work in the factories, particularly up north. Mm-hmm. And they put them in tenement housing.
Right.
And they would just have a row of outhouses that literally had to be used by hundreds of people. Like give them 10 outhouses, but you've got 500 people using 10 outhouses. Mm-hmm. Like they would get so filled with shit and overflow with shit so quickly that people just shit everywhere. And disease was rampant. They'd never talk about the Black Plague. The average life expectancy of the average commoner in the United States up until we had real sanitation, and that was 100 years ago, was 43 years old. Particularly in the cities. In the countryside, it didn't matter. Right. It was like, hey, you gotta take a shit, go behind a tree, take a shit, no big deal. You get shit in 100 different spots, it never accumulates.
Dude, I'm watching another one here, and this woman in a nice dress, man, she goes into an elevator, she's looking around, she stops it, and then boom, just drops one. Pulls it up and then goes. I mean, it's like you're in a city that has elevators. There's got to be a toilet somewhere.
You're in a building. There's got to be a restroom, but they don't like it. They're just like, that seems so unnatural to them. They're much more.
Yeah, but the thing is that they're going to smell. I mean, they're going to stink. Who's going to hire them? I mean, she thought enough. She thought enough to put on a nice skirt, nice. I mean, it was kind of a long one, but you're gonna risk it all, that feeling of freshness all day long to just friggin' scat in an elevator. This is some form of terrorism, I'm pretty sure.
Welcome to China.
This is some form of terrorism.
And they want to bring this around the world. It's like, people years ago understood this. They'd be like, no, in order to live in a civilized center, a civil center, you had to behave civilly. Right. You had to use the toilet. You had to wipe your ass. You had to clean yourself, that sort of stuff. They had the sanitation means of getting rid of it, and it was like, okay.
Right.
But in these people just like, well, it's all over the streets in China. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who's over in China because he's in the vaping business, and he goes to China regularly, and he loves China. But he's like, the bad thing about China is you go into these big cities and you smell shit everywhere.
Yeah, I mean it's not something that you want to.
Other than that, he says it's great, and there are cities in China where people have become civilized. They're trying to train them. This is why they crack down on the Chinese people. One of the reasons with the social credit scoring and stuff, is they're trying to get people to stop doing this. So they think like, well, the only way we can do it is by punishing them. We have to force them into doing it. It's sort of like Singapore or Shanghai, whatever that. Remember the guy that went over to one of those cities? This was back in the 90s, and I think he spit on the sidewalk or something, and he got caught, and he got 10 lashes.
And this is where?
This was in Southeast Asia. One of the cities there they're so strict. I mean, they have such a strict cleanliness code that if you spit on the sidewalk or you litter, they don't fine you monetarily. They give you 10 lashes. And he got caught doing something, littering or something like that, maybe throwing a cigarette butt out. And all of a sudden, he gets caught, and then he gets arrested, and it was a big thing. And
I'm for the beating. I mean, I see people throwing shit, and I mean, when you're a young kid, you don't think about littering. You really don't. And like
people don't think about littering as adults, man. You're right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would not
that's
do it.
All I see is litter.
Like if I have something in my hand that I need to throw away, I'm like, I might, for a convenience thing, I might just be like, well, I could just drop this. But then I'm thinking, I'll just put it in my pocket and throw it away later. Like why? I see people just throw like, bags of chips or something like that. And they're obviously just dropping them because they don't give a shit. And I mean, it kind of fucking annoys me, man. It kind of makes, it's just like, what are you? Like, there are receptacles for this. And what are you, just a lazy piece of shit? And that apparently, yes.
Yeah. And don't.
It's just gross to me now. I mean, just throwing stuff, or even people just flicking like cigarette butts out of the window of their car because they don't want to dirty their car. It's like, you fucking bag of shit. You bag of fucking pus.
And it's all the streets are littered. Oh my God.
I kind of look at that in the same way as this woman. The title of this was "Woman Fashionista Caught on CCTV Doing a Massive Poo in a Lift in China." Fashionista. And it's like, if you're going to take the time to wear nice clothes, find a fucking toilet. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you know what? That you really, really look great today in that dress. Did you shit somewhere and not wipe? It's like, there's got to be.
That's why
if you're
going
to dress, I mean, and if people.
There is only one holistic system of systems.
I will MK Ultra ya. Put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57mm Mark 110, 220 rounds a minute, try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list, that's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform shocking on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary. For the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran that's enriched. That's a bitch. Now we gotta teach a lesson to them.